Stream is live.
Ross, I see you. Good morning. No, afternoon. Let us know. Let me know if how we sound.
This is Peter Erickson doing a little mic check here in Arlington, Virginia.
All right, my man. Adam, good to see you. All right, Pete. How the fuck are you?
That's a loaded question, my friend. I'm an independent conference producer, and I am, I live in a paradox, right? I live in a paradox of amazing things going on, and also, getting through the realities of being an independent conference producer in a very interesting time in the history of humanity, right? I think that I'm also a proud father of two beautiful kids. I got a great dog and a wonderful wife and a wonderful family. So it's like I pinch myself almost every day. But so yeah, loaded question. I'm doing okay and fighting the good fight.
So when's your next event?
So I've got an event August 8th. It's a one-day event on it's called GovAI Summit. So it's a public sector AI event focused on the state and local markets. So that is really my next in-person event, just a one-day event, fairly small, but really it's a feeder event into my larger conference called GovAI Summit, which is a public sector event, which is also co-located with my Voice and AI conference, which is a conference that's in its 8th year. And it was one of the pioneering conferences at the intersection of AI and the human voice, and largely started around the hype cycle of Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant, but has quickly, morphed into more of an enterprise conversational AI event. So those are my two main events. And before COVID, we topped out at like 4,300 people, and we're clawing our way back into, some semblance of of conferences on the other side of such an interesting time.
So for Ross and Adam and whoever else is, starts to join in, like you and I met via mutual friend and finally got connected this weekend. I'll blame you.
Yeah.
And you deciding to have surgery and whatever to delay our friendship, but that's, you do you. But we got connected and finally chatted, and it was like two brothers from a different mother. Same exact feelings, the same kind of war wounds. And then, afterwards I said, okay, well, we should just talk more and just fucking stream it so everybody can hear it, and we'll just kind of go from there. Yeah. So here we are. And, your conferences are much larger than mine. And like any business, it doesn't really matter to size. Like once you have plus one, they're all the same. You just have more or less resources to kind of deal with whatever you've been handed. And, but the problems are all the same, right? When you run a business, you still have payroll, you still have this, you still have that. Some companies have giant teams of lawyers. Others do freelancing lawyers like I do, where I just look at other places and collectively borrow. So, interesting to compare.
I think that, it's interesting. Yeah. Well, that conference is so well respected, and, you've hit some decent numbers with that kind. I think anytime you get over 1,000, you put a conference into a different,
it's a different thing,
a different level. And that started for me in 2018. It was the first time I broke 1,000 at a conference. And we grew quickly, but then we hit the pandemic, right? And then that really changed things. So post-pandemic, we're back down to where, it's very enterprisey kind of focused events. And, I got my start with developers. So Modev stands for mobile development. So I built a mobile developer community. And then I parlayed that into a bunch of different kinds of really focused on developer health. The irony is I didn't intend to wear this shirt. You pulled it out of my drawer today. and put it on. This is the Code Writers Workshop, was a series that I created back in like 2015, 16, 17, because I could see that the health of developers was a challenge, like living a healthy life, work balance. It still is, right? And I really relate to you because it was very focused, and this was a very successful, interesting series. And, you know, one of my speakers, we did call it kind of like the soft skills. So Code Writers Workshop was about the soft skills. But one of my speakers, this woman, she said, you know, I like to call them the power skills. And I thought that was a really great positioning. So I have been focused, like you, on the health of the industry and the health of the people that come to the conferences that I produce. And almost to a painful level of making sure that people are getting their needs met at an event. And there was a time when that was really valued, I think, by people that attended. And now we're sort of in this era, Clark, and I think the reason why you and I relate so well is conferences are measured on very almost like obtuse terms of number of leads, you know, almost like, you know, for people that are attending to learn something and actually advance their careers, they're being challenged by the companies that they work for to almost prove it. What like you can't articulate almost what you can learn at an event, especially an event organized by an independent conference producer. So we've been put into this position where we really have to deliver something that is a challenge in today's world. I think it's driven by the fact that there's a lot of content online. The mega conferences are very hot. So the mega platform conferences, AWS reInvent, Adobe Max, Salesforce, Dreamforce, not saying anything negative about those events.
No,
just that seems to be where a lot of attention goes. And the need, as you said, the need to convene human beings and the need to get people together in a safe, interesting, stimulating environment to share with one another directly has never been greater. It absolutely has never been greater. And I think that's why I relate to you so much. And we are working to bring that into and make that part of our brand, an experience story for the conference, because it's not enough just to have a bunch of breakouts and teach people something. It's there's something greater that's needed.
Yeah. Can you, I have a hard time articulating where it is that I think we will end up. I guess I'll share the tea, because some of the folks who are in the chat are, I call, super fans of ours. Like, there's no fucking way we continue as we are today. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Not sustainable. Like, it's not sustainable.
No, right. We're not making our numbers now. We're not, you know, the venue costs, the challenges around all of that has exceeded what the market is willing to bear in the capacity that we're doing. So you mentioned the mega conference. You know, I feel like they all have a place, and together they all should live in harmony with one another. But I'm always reminded of that, like, saying, we're both old guys. I'm reminded of that saying, like, nobody ever got fired for choosing IBM. Right. And I feel like that's the same thing. It's like nobody's ass is on the line if I send you to mega conference because, you know, it's mega conference. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily any better per value dollar, what you've learned, what you've not learned, but somebody doesn't have to justify it versus, hey, here's this other thing and it doesn't quite fit into it. And it used to be like this for sponsors too, or like, I can draw the corollary when we had sponsors. When we had cheap sponsor dollar amounts, I would work my ass off to get a $1,500 sponsorship, and then they would steal from us and I would be out the money. Or when I raised the price, then sponsors were suddenly invested in the success of the thing in themselves. And you're like, I didn't do anything different other than raise the dollar amount, and the perceived value was better. Now, granted, it was a big help for us financially, and we were mispriced, but, you know, I just think of like the market, the exchange, the things that we offer, the ego, the for me, and one of the things I want to talk to you about too is like our top of funnel is atrocious. I swear I started this whole thing backwards, 15 years ago or 14 years ago. We started with conference, didn't have a community, if you will. We were trying to build one through a facility. Well, today you would go build one and then have the thing. Like, this is before social medias and, all those things that now exist today. But yeah,
I had no idea what I was doing when I got into this. Right? I started a meetup community for mobile developers because it was needed. I had moved to DC from Seattle. I didn't know anybody. I moved here to get married. Great reason to move to DC. And I didn't know anybody, and the iPhone and Android, stores were out, the app stores were out. I wanted to get into that business. And so I started a meetup group to just bring people together. And that changed the course of my life dramatically. Like, totally. We ended up, getting hundreds and hundreds of people joining and then thousands of people. And then people said, hey, you should put on a conference. And I had the team at Gannett /USA Today said, hey, we got a conference venue, come do it here. And like, I built a WordPress website by myself overnight, recruited all the speakers, sold the sponsorships, but like you, I was selling them for, $500, $1,000 or $1,500. I left so much money on the table. It was unreal. But then I came home after that conference and it was like, I told my wife, I said, I think Modev is our business. Like, I didn't plan on it being a business. I think this is our next business. And I just jumped in with both feet. And then, for 10 years, grew it slowly every year, always experimenting. But the thing is, people really appreciated the conveners out there. Like, there were a handful of folks doing it, and some people doing it at scale really well. I think Tim O'Reilly, I really admire what he was doing at the O'Reilly conference series. Sort of admired, like, I always saw myself hopefully getting, to that level. But conveners and the art of convening, I say the art because it is an art. It's definitely something that bringing people together is a unique skill set, and it takes a lot of time to really figure it out. And I think where we are, Clark, right now is we're relearning that skill set in the face of an anthropological change of human beings and what we want to do and how we get together. But it grew slowly over time for me. And then of course we hit the pandemic. And so we had to adjust like everybody else. I got very lucky, I will say, during the pandemic. In one sense, it was a bit of false sense of security, but we had big platform partners like Google, and we landed a very, very nice contract to do an online talk show around our voice conference called Voice Talks, and we ended up winning a Webby Award for that. And things were looking really good. And then, I was going to plan on this nice recovery back in 2022, back to live events. And it just was anything but smooth, Obviously, we had the Omicron variant or the Delta variant and all these kind of variants, and all this stuff was like, it was anything but smooth. But now here we are. And I do want to say that I do feel very grateful that I have, a 7-year conference that's been around. I launched GovAI Summit. That was a very good idea. And I've had to put both those conferences in the same venue at the same time in order to consolidate one cost basis.
Resources. Sure.
Yes, because that's how we can recover, right? But that's not sustainable either. I think each conference needs its own space. And so this is 2024 is a year of recovery, when I thought 22 was a year of recovery, and then 23. And it's also a year to recognize that things have changed a lot. And so we can't, and we've been going through this every day. And I was on the phone again with Jamie this morning, my conference program lead, Jamie Walking Bear, who, by the way, I hired from O'Reilly. And just saying, look, things have to be incredibly different. We just can't produce the same kind of conference and expect the same results. People want to connect with one another. They want expertise, but they want it directly from somebody. They don't want to sit in a room with 100 other people, watch somebody up on a screen. and then get in a line of 20 people to talk to that person. Like that model is over. And
mega conference will keep doing it. They'll do it until they
mega conferences can do that, because when you have 70,000 people at a conference, sure, you can fill a 100-seat breakout room. Yeah. Go for it all day long.
And you're gatekeeping the content anyways, because you own the product. So
that's right. That's right. It's all about one platform. And that's also, it is ironic how much people will spend to go to one platform's conference.
Right. Yeah.
It's a lot, So as independent conference organizers, we have to put out a product that they just can't get elsewhere. And that's what we have to do.
And that they don't know they want.
What's that?
And that they don't know that they want.
That's right.
It's the Henry Ford example of everybody wanted a faster horse and we built a car. And there's this place right now where I don't want to say people are confused, but you and I are a little further ahead of the thinking, and we can see that people want a different experience and that they're longing for it. It's the right one, but leading people to that place, like I couldn't just be like, fuck it, guys, we're going to do something different this year. Like, and then, the end of the month be like, oh yeah, we're not doing that sessions thing. We're doing this whole other thing. People just wouldn't know how to act to it. And we've spent the last 3-ish years like experimenting as to how we can change and what will sort of work. And they've just been minor things, like, and I'm ready to blow it up.
Oh yeah. No, I think
it's not working for me.
Yeah. Well, and our customers, a big part of our, we also obviously have multiple customers. Our customers are our sponsors, right? So there's some things that we're doing concretely different this year. So we took a bunch of we took 8 breakout rooms and we turned them into houses. Houses are different from a breakout room. They will have some comfortable seating, a coffee bar. In the back of the room, there will be a very small intimate stage with some tight seating around it and like maybe a 70-inch screen. Some may not even have audio visual, like you can plug a HDMI cable into the TV.
That's all. I'm telling you, we did it. That's all you need.
Yeah. The idea is people want to, and so let's just say we've sold a couple of these. So we have the IBM Watson House, right? So in the Watson House, you know what you're going to get when you walk in there. You're going to get information about what's happening with Watson. You might meet some of the team. You might see some, go back and hear some case study stories. But for IBM, it changes the whole conference experience. This is not a booth on a expo floor. And it's interactive. And, I'm not the author of this idea. I went to events and I was very, very lucky to go to World Economic Forum and go walk up and down the promenade and go into these house activations and go see what people were doing and experiencing these small, small rooms in small stages, intimate stages with really powerful people sitting on them, like that's what people want. They want that intimacy. They need that reconnection. We're so disconnected. We still are, 4 years after this pandemic started, it's almost like we habituated ourselves into this isolation. And there's a lot of talk going on right now across a lot of podcasts about the mental health crisis in this country and around the world, of loneliness, of disconnection. You've got remote workers who work at home all day. Maybe they go to a coffee shop, but they're still by themselves. Yeah. And, we've got to reconnect. So we're doing this for sponsors. And then instead of 15 breakout rooms, we're creating round tables that are numbered, and they're like breakout rooms, but you're going to give your talk at a table of 10 people with your laptop, and you're just going to talk. And instead of, and for us as an event, it's more streamlined. The event costs are so high now. It really works against independent. If you're a commercial independent conference organizer, you should stay clear of traditional venues as much as you can, because the market is not designed for you. It is designed for corporate events that have kind of unlimited budgets. Hey Jeff, how you doing, man? Great to see you. And I love that, Ross. Thank you. Yes, I think speaking directly to people, I'm excited about this. I think this roundtable idea is going to work for the speakers that we normally would get put into these larger rooms, but we're going to put them directly with the people that matter the most to them. And yeah, so anyway, those are just some of the things we're doing, and it's working. You know, we've got great partners like Carasoft has come on board. They're a fabulous company, IBM. So I'm excited. However, I will tell you, getting to this point and this realization that the market has shifted, super painful, super scary financially. I am consulting now for the first time as to bring in a living for myself and my family while I can still build these conferences and build them back to health. I'm not going to abandon that business. I feel like I've got 15 years into this, and doing all the things I can do to kind of see it through. The last thing I want to do is get a job right now.
I mean, I'm in the same boat, right? Working 2 fucking jobs, doing the consulting. I feel like I'm constantly failing everybody at the moment.
Isn't that? I tell you, Clark, I want to validate that feeling you have, and I'll tell you why. Because it is a feeling that is, I believe it's a bit unique to conference organizers, event planners. We are honestly a constant letdown for so many people. I mean, you hear it all the time, right? Your sponsors are let down because it didn't meet enough people. Attendees are let down because you didn't program it correctly. I mean, you hear it all the time. And so I want to validate.
Really thought about it.
I want to validate that feeling that you have, because it's a real feeling. It's a real feeling. And I mean, I like to say I've had to grow thick skin, but I would be remiss if I didn't share that it really eats me a lot when, when sponsors don't renew, and it's like you busted your butt and they might have done really well at your conference, really well, and then they still don't renew because, they don't have to. Nobody's required to renew, but when you're supporting them and advocating them for them for years and then they don't come back, it's kind of like, well, this is my business. This is my family business, by the way. This is not like, we're not a utility and you just plug in the power at any given time when you need to charge your phone. It's like, so I want to validate that feeling. I totally understand it 100%.
Yeah. It's, I never really, until you said it, I never really realized the amount of not good enough across the board that we get, because it's, especially as you get closer to the event and we're within 30 days. So everything's hell at the moment. It's
I know that.
It's
I know
amazing.
that 30 days. Yeah. And
hell.
I think
it's hell
too, Clark, what's happened is you're being compared to things that are not possible to be compared with. Right. So we look at, thanks, Ross. I think that, look, I'll give the Discord example, right? We have a lot of developer platforms that we work with. And, we've heard almost quote, why would we come meet a few hundred people at your event when we have 35,000 or more people in our Discord channel? And we can just ask them every day. And it's very, I need to get better at the answer, because the answer is you absolutely have to meet with people in addition to have your Discord. Discord, great. Congratulations. You've got 100,000 subscribers on your platform and you've got a bunch of people in Discord channel. But we get compared to this stuff all the time. And it's like, there is nothing that can replace human connection. If you could come sit down with, a few engineers around a table and get real feedback directly, it's worth 100 days on Discord. It's like, there's something about that. And so we get compared a lot. We get compared to digital marketing. Oh, we get, we're driving X number of demand gen. So demand gen's a top line number. We have so many, top of funnel coming in. And when you get compared at a conference, when you might drive 100 or 200 people top of funnel into their top of funnel, and they're like, oh, we get that every day. But it's like, yeah, you're spending,
Right.
50,000 a month on Google ads and YouTube
Right.
pre-roll ads and driving people to a landing page. That is not the same. So we get compared all the time with things that are not, but and not the marketing people, people that are in marketing for these companies. I'm not going to pick on them, but they're being told to get this top line number. So an independent conference organizer that has in the 1,000 range of attendees is being compared to, the mega conference with 60,000 people, the digital marketing campaigns that drive in tons of inbound leads, Discord channels that have a lot of people talking in them. But I can almost guarantee you the demand and the people that are in all those digital are not nearly as valuable as the people that will attend a conference and sit there and speak, because I don't know too many people that are hanging out on Discord right now.
1,000%. I mean, I say this stuff, and Keith says it well, right? We're so connected yet disconnected.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Danger. Yeah, it's ugly that we.
Is.
We are hyper connected, but we are disconnected, and I think there is gold in this for us, Clark. I do feel like that it's just so there's real gold to mine here, where that becomes part of the product, is the real authentic human connection. And I know that look, we talked, I mean, I know that it's like, well, will that pay the bills? I mean, does it matter? But I do believe with sponsors, I do believe with partners that we want to hit that home. And we haven't been. We've been trying to play this game and having some success. I mean, we do have partners signed, and look, like you, I think we put on the best product. I think even with the changes we're doing, it's going to be the best conference product in my markets all year. I believe in myself that much. I don't advocate for myself very much, but I definitely believe in myself, and I definitely believe in what we're doing is the right thing. And I haven't made that part of my product. I think one challenge I would give you is to continue, and your authenticity online is showing through, and I think that's actually going to pay off, because your fear, your challenge with making this conference work financially, those are real. But your also desire to create a healthy community, to create safe spaces, to move the industry forward, which you've touched countless lives. I listened to your podcast, and with Tejas, and I just loved it. I'm so glad because he was been an attendee and a speaker for years at your conference.
Yeah.
But I think that there is something about the human connection and the human aspect of this that I'm gonna pick up from here and carry that forward in our messaging and in what we do and why it's different.
Yeah, you mentioned Twitter, and somebody had put out some shit about I'm scamming people for the $25 ticket, and then I was giving them shit back online. And the funny part about the whole thing is, one, I don't have thick skin. I grew up I grew up in a place where you had to stick up for yourself. So if somebody disrespected you and your family, you stood up for yourself. And anytime that kind of shit happens, like, I'm like, nope, not me. But the funny part about the whole $25 ticket was, the reality is, I need to know if you're coming. Like, I need you to be invested in attending. Like, $25 isn't a big ask if you're out of work. I get it. Money is tight, but so is the chair that's on the other end of that ticket that's really expensive. And if you don't show up, then I have a bigger problem, because I've allocated, space, I've purchased things for you and all this. And that's that kind of like, it's so easy online to just be throwing shit at people, which is useless, right?
Well, I tell you, even at $25, you're investing in them. You're investing in people to be there at $25 a lot. you know.
Yeah,
We used to
hundreds.
do full ride scholarships. The only time we'll do them is if they're corporately sponsored now. If a corporation wants to be the named full ride sponsor, but we provide deep like you know, dollars, you know, but still, you know, you invest in everybody that is coming, then you're investing in their being there. You know, I think when we do conferences at large, you know, hotel venues, just the cost, we have, you know, multi-day conferences, but just the cost of somebody to walk on site for us, like it's about $400 or $500. Like it's a lot. We do food and drinks and, you know, all that stuff. And it's really, really expensive. People don't, I think, appreciate, Lydia, that's great. I'm so glad you could attend. I think that, yeah, people don't, I don't think they quite appreciate, and it's not just, you know, it's not just that hard cost. It's a year planning. You know, this is not like, you know, like you're in the last 30 days and it's like, I mean, I know that 30 days, right? And it's hell, but it's
a guessing game.
We've had hell days all year where we spend, you know, a team of us 10, 12-hour days crushing it in the spring for an events that are happening in October. And I think that's what people can't totally get or understand, that like just how much work goes into organizing conferences. And many don't learn it until they do it. And then they're like, oh, geez, you know, company tried to put on their own conference. They're like, well, we thought we'd just throw our own conference. And then they like are wiped out afterwards. And like, we're never doing that again.
Yeah. How hard could it really be? You're like, well,
right.
Okay.
Right. Just a meetup. Just try to organize a monthly meetup that's 2 hours long in some venue, probably some office space that you're getting donated, and get the speakers there, get it promoted, get some beverages there, maybe order some pizza. Is there AV? Oh, in the internet? Is there, you know, does it all work? And then pretty soon you start to see people that's why a lot of meetups start and then they fizzle out after a couple months, because the organizer's like, oh, I didn't realize this is a full-time job. Because even just one monthly meetup that's 2 hours is an incredible amount of time and energy. And that's what I did for years. I did that to build my community, but I can't go back.
Yeah, I don't want to go back either. You know, there's been so much work put into it. There's been so much work put into the platform. And I feel like we've never, at least for us, we've never hit our tipping point. Like, I feel like we've done everything backwards. We know mechanically how to do things. We know how to run the event. We're very passionate about getting the community together. We know how the budgets work, right? We're not financially stable anymore, right? There's a lot of other things working against us. Like, it's not a good deal at the moment. And, but I also feel like we're at the, like you said, I'm hopeful that there's a tipping point beyond that we can do well. I often question if us running two, which we've now put the second one on pause, was the right move or not. I did not respect how difficult +1 would be. Like, that was just,
well, it's the restaurant owner. Look, you know, Clark, one thing I've said this for years. I feel like a restaurant owner more than an event organizer. And I can relate to a restaurant owner. We're chefs, right? We have an independent bistro restaurant, and that's our events. But what's happened is the market, there's a lot of private equity in the events business now, a lot of public companies in the events business now. And what do those companies do? They build Paneras. And that's, you know, and then, you know, so people, they want a good cheap meal, and they'll go to Maggiano's versus go to, you know, the Bear, you know. And I think that I definitely feel like an independent chef more than anything. And that's what people, and I think it's hard to convey that, but I can relate to that. So when you start a second conference, you're starting another restaurant.
Yeah.
And that scale is really hard. And I've known chefs that tried to open a second location and then ended up losing both of them because it's not, or in any independent retail type of scenario. I've seen people do it in retail stores as well, open a second location, and it just, it's really, really, really hard.
Yeah. On paper, right, it looks, it looks like it should all work, right?
Yeah.
Not that it doesn't work. It just, I don't think for how many people we have or the staff that we have, that it works for us.
Well, yeah, because you've got it. It's linear scale. The problem is events are linear. Look, let's not kid ourselves. It's a very linear thing to try to organize. This is not like AI is not going to help you organize a conference, right? And it's people time. Events are people time. And, you have to skill people. So that's why, you and your wife are in, right? And I have we have a very small team. We don't have nearly the team that we've had in the past. We're down to a very tight organization. And yeah, so the tipping point, Clark, I do believe, I have to believe that there's a tipping point, but it can't happen in the same way. It's not the same linear build that we had before. You and I were very similar. We built very successful businesses over 10 years prior to the pandemic. The pandemic hit, it changed everything. And we all get that, right? But I do believe this tipping point has to be and could be around the human need to reconnect. And I do believe that there's value there. Now, can sponsor dollars line up with that? Maybe it's a different kind of sponsorship. I don't know. I'm just talking out loud, but maybe there's a different aspect of this that we haven't been thinking about from a company health standpoint, right? Maybe this is a benefit versus a training budget, where it's like, you need mental health, you need to go. I want all our engineers to go to that conference and we'll sponsor it, like, is there that kind of tipping point?
There has to be something different for their sponsors. Cause if there's an influx in resumes, their ego is too high to think that they're recruiting because they're like, I have too much. So I already got, my pipeline is full.
Right.
Product sales can't measure it because it's not instantaneous for them. So they're going to go back to, what they know, which is I can measure the number of leads come in and this and that. So we'll get 2%. But your thing, even though the return is much greater from just being involved with real people than it would be elsewhere. And brand recognition, I mean, look, big companies want it when they do shit jobs and little companies want it when they launch. Nobody wants it in the middle, right? So that bell curve of like when you should be involved, like, Microsoft and Google and these folks, they'll come back once they've realized they've been shitting all over everybody for so long and hasn't been involved. They're like, oh yeah, we got to get back to the community. Yeah, get back to our roots. Come on, developers. Who are the people running community? Oh, let's go call Pete. Like Pete's got people. Let's go over the Pete. Like Pete, how much money do you need, Pete? We're back. We're best friends, right? And you're like, fuck you. Where have you been for the last fucking 5 years? Like, when we needed you, you weren't there for the people.
Yeah. Yeah. I sort of feel like, I do feel like there's, think about, I go back, I'm going to go back to the restaurant thing. And it's because during the pandemic,
that's a good analogy.
What did we do? We ordered from the restaurants that we cared about, where we cared about the owners. Right. And I do feel a little like, independent event organizers aren't treated kind of that same way, where it's like, look, just come back because it's the right, just come back because it's the right thing to do. Like, it's the right thing to do to support independent conference organizer. And you're going to get a great meal, by the way. You're going to get a great experience. You're going to get the real authentic experience. And yeah, I think Don, Danger. Yes. Thank you. I think that, and Don, nice comment there. So I do I mean, and playing into that sensibility is very hard though, right? It's a hard thing to do. And I think that it's like, you know, we're, you know, we deliver a real product. We deliver a real thing. It's tangible. I think the other issue I think you're facing is that there is a dearth of resumes on the market right now. There were 185,000 tech layoffs just in the first half of 2023. Those people are still cycling through, right? And there have been a lot of layoffs this year. So for all these open jobs, I mean, you've heard the stories over and again. People that are applying in hundreds of places and not hearing anything back. There are so many resumes. However, if you want to hire somebody really good, you meet them in person. You meet them at a conference.
I am blown away at the number of tickets, $25 tickets, that have not been taken. Because if you needed a job, it's right fucking there. Like,
right.
Why are you not showing up? Why are you sitting at home emailing folks and clicking on LinkedIn shit? Why are you not showing up? It blows my mind. Of the 15, 16 years, 17 years I've been organizing events in some capacity, never has the engagement been higher than it is today. Like, without question, people are way more authentic, way more involved, way more engaged. And yet the people who are bitching about it won't fucking go out and like go meet the people who are engaged. Like, what world, how more obvious does it need to be to just put some pants on and go to fuck outside? Like, I don't get it. Like,
well, we're lulled into this. We're lulled into a digital world because we believe that's got the answers because we're being told by the companies that have the platforms that is where the answers are. So we look for jobs. We look for our customers there. We do all these things. However, it really does happen. Yes, it really does happen in person. By the way, Code Writers Workshop was an incredibly successful these were 100-person, one-day workshops on the developer life. So time management, career management, interpersonal networking skills, a negotiation, like all these really important skills. Capital One, by the way, was my sponsor. I think you can see it on my thing here. Okay, so I got very lucky. I was in with the hiring managers at Capital One when they were in their big heyday between 2012 and 2018. And they loved these things because guess what? They hired their best engineers because their best engineers cared about this kind of content. And it was just formula, it just was magic. They were hiring people they loved. And a lot of those people are still there. Yep. I was too successful, Clark. It was too good. The recruiting groups caught wind of how many people were being recruited, and they shut it down. They shut down the sponsorship. They moved all the recruiting activities to a certain office, and that office would make decisions on sponsoring events, and they offered us pennies on the dollar of what they were previously putting in.
What?
So the whole thing changed.
Why?
But, well, that's a whole nother story, but it's
politics,
recruiting versus hiring managers. Yep. Right. But it was a really great experience, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the inner workings of business and getting kind of caught up in the hiring process within organizations. And now I'm learning it again. And the reason being is we cite hiring and recruiting as a key deliverable for potential sponsors. But now they're citing that they're getting so much inbound that they don't feel the need to come to an in-person event, which is exactly opposite of what they should be doing. Yes, you're getting tons of inbounds, but can you filter through all those inbounds and actually get to who matters most? And I believe the people that matter most are going to be at the event in person. So
wouldn't you want the person putting in the reps? Like I'm not saying that there's not equally great people, and I recognize that people can't go to things based upon distance. I get all of that. But at the same token, if I've got so much, then aren't I going to go to where it would be the easiest to go, the quickest to get the thing that I knew the most? Like you could come to that conference and literally meet the entire family and go, like, this decision could be made. The person you may have to win is the spouse, not even the person getting hired, right? You get a chance to sell the spouse to say, yeah, you should go work. Like, I think that the culture fits, honey. Why don't you go take that job? And I don't, everybody's just got to fucking, I should say everybody, but
I think this gets back to where we are on this. And I would love the listeners to weigh in. There is such a need for in-person connecting, expertise, ideas exchange, recruiting, and leads and building business. I mean, let's just be honest. We want people to buy our platforms, right? And yeah, that's right. And by the way, so the offsite retreat is super important. Thanks, Adam. I've heard from two. I've heard from two of 75 resumes. Does that mean you've sent out 75 and you've heard two from two different people?
That's the way I took it.
Yeah. It just gets back. I think that this is a drumbeat that we have to drumbeat, that this is so important. And that needs to, because we know it. We know it. Look, my wife and I, we had a wake-up call that we had isolated ourselves from any of our friend groups. Like, we just stopped going out. It was because of the pandemic, we were told to stay home, but then we just got comfortable. And then we just did not. And then we found ourselves in this sort of crisis, kind of a crisis of like, wait a minute, we're not connected. We're disconnected from the communities that we used to hang out. And you know what? It does take effort. It's like, you gotta get gears going again, and you've got to make efforts, and because it got very easy, but that easiness was unhealthy. That easiness is not healthy. And I think that that's where so many companies are. I think that, so I just think that there's something about this, and I really appreciate people weighing in on the chats about being together is more critical than it's ever been.
I mean, people confuse this little slab of glass, with deep relationships. Like, this is the conversation I have with, my kids a lot. It's like, you don't know that person. Their highlight reel. Like, the little bits that they feed to the engine, and what the engine feeds you. Like, are they in your contact book? Like, can you actually call them and sit in the shit with them? Like, where are they on the spectrum of like actually being a friend? And the reality is, most, not so much, right? Like, it's just a story that we've been fed.
Well, and I think, I think that, so I think that is where some magic is for us. I think one thing I want to share on this is that, one of the light bulb moments I had in talking with you is like, I know a bunch of independent conference organizers. I've already spoken with another one today. So Jeff, if you're out there, Jeff Blankenberg runs Stir Trek conference in Columbus, Ohio. And his situation is a little bit different. He's, this conference is a side gig for him. You and I, these are our businesses. This is how we feed our families. Although I will say that owning conferences is not a great way to feed the family these days. You have to have a side gig.
I would say right now it's a good way to clothe them with shirts that are left over from years prior.
That's right. Yeah. So there's, you got look, I've got leftover swag from my own events, right?
We're doing now.
But we're going to form. So I think there's like this indie conference network, and there are already a couple of there's a Society of Independent Conference Organizers, CICO, I think it's, or CISO, I think it's called. However, it is hardly independent. I got to say, I looked at this thing. It's all private equity backed and public companies. These are not independents. So I think that there's an opportunity for us to bind together with, tens or dozens of indie conferences where we create a network for ourselves, where we provide some benefits and some reach capabilities for those marketers out there that are trying to make decisions, where you can say, hey, look, we're part of this indie conference network, and you're going to get all these things. And that came out of our call yesterday. And I do believe that stuff like that are things that we can start to do, where also we really hit home the benefit. Because the worst thing that can happen, Clark, is if guys like you and I and a bunch of other folks that are indie conference producers stop doing what we do. There's going to be a huge hole in the market. And the big conferences are going to keep going. They're going to keep growing, and you've got the CES, which I produce with conferences with them. So I do side events at CES. They've been a great partner of mine for a long time. I've done side events at Mobile World Congress and other events. Those events are going to be fine. They're going to grow and grow and grow. The platform conferences are going to grow and grow and grow and grow. There's just too much. It's too big of a marketing opportunity for those platforms. They invest quite a bit. I do find it ironic that you'll spend an attendee has to spend thousands of dollars to go to a platform conference where they're making money on the attendance and selling their own. It's a beautiful model. I mean, it's like,
I mean, and the food is shit. And
no, yeah.
Sponsors are paying premium dollars to be there. I'm with you. I'm with you on that one.
Oh, I like that term, parasocial. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think that's I think a lot of what we're talking about in many ways. I would say that even the mega conference is kind of a parasocial experience, because you're there you're there, but it is really hard to connect with people at large events. And this is like neuroscience, right? We have our prefrontal cortex gets so packed and so busy with all the stimuli and trying to keep track of everything. We actually can't make a meaningful connection with another person or really remember maybe even what we talked about. So, if you might be there meeting folks that you feel like are important, maybe a potential client, chances are they're not going to remember you. Good luck on the follow-up. I have a little anecdotal story. So I did this event with CES in January, and it had one of the largest restaurants in the world. Their head of head of data and analytics. She's wonderful. She spoke at my event. And then we had a follow-up call this spring. And she said, I don't know if I'll go to the large conferences anymore. I can't. It's hard for me to go where I speak and then I have to stand there and talk to 50 people. She goes, I love people. I love meeting the people. It's not that. It's just that I'm not going to do anything really meaningful with any of those people because there's so many for me to meet. And it's like, she goes, now, if I go to an event that's 100 or 150 people and I get a chance to really spend some time with people, vendors, I love that. And I will do business with people that I can connect with, where I have that opportunity. And that really stuck with me. I'm just like, amen.
Yeah. And I worry, going back to your point about just the state of the independent producer, I worry that people don't really realize how fucking close it is that we're on the verge of collapse.
Right.
I don't think everybody really recognizes that the duct tape is ripping and it's ripping fast. Shit, I mean, it's been 4 years. You have to remember, like, for you and I went from almost $1 million in revenue to $20,000 overnight.
Right.
And I only had the 20 because that vendor was like, keep it because we'd like to see you next year.
Right.
There was nothing else. Like, those funds, what was there was burnt. And the investment in other funds have been used to get to here. So it's been 4 years.
Right.
Inflation has taken a toll. Like, it's the system is not working as it needs to work for all constituents. So
It's not. And I think that I think the thing is the market needs you, Clark, more than it ever has. People like me.
I agree.
I feel very fortunate that we've had some decent traction this year. We have some beautiful conferences taking shape. However, I will add that a lot of the folks that I thought would be coming back are not. Some of the key partners that we've had, but we've got new ones, right? So I feel like there is a little light. There's some light for us at the end of the tunnel. But I will say that in 2025, we have to do things even much differently. We can't absorb the same kind of venue costs that we have in the past. There's no way. There absolutely is no way. Venues are not built for independent conference organizers anymore. You say inflation, the cost of producing a conference, the same number of people, the same time, the same AV is double at least what it was 4 years ago. It is incredibly expensive. Hotels are brutal on the contracts now because they everyone had force majeure in the pandemic, but now the screws are down. It is much harder to navigate and to have any kind of flexibility with venues. So got to find alternative venues, alternative locations, deliver a product that can't be delivered at a mega conference. And yeah, I mean, it's not without its challenges. I'm here to fight it. Been doing this 15 years. So it's kind of like, bring it on, what else am I going to do? I think as I build my consulting practice, it'll be even easier. I mean, let's just face it, we already work 60, 70 hours a week. So when you're an event organizer, that's just kind of what your life is like. So I do feel like hopefully
I'm in the 7 days a week at this point, right? Like we're counting hours and days of like, can we get the FedEx truck to drive faster? Because I've been delaying and busy on other things.
Clark, what are some of the things? And we want to be a partner, and we're going to send this out to our list. We want people to go to that conference. By the way, it's amazing just to get to know you after this past weekend. And I'm glad we finally reconnected. I think that I'm coming also off an injury. I broke my back skiing in January. It was a crazy, very, very crazy experience. And that's what pushed our
a couple of years ago, I busted up my shoulder snowboarding. So
right. Oh yeah, that's right. We share that. I don't know what it is about us, Clark. We have a lot in common. But I will just say this, like, we're going to push as hard as we can for that conference because it's really important. What else can people do aside from go and register and attend? If I'm a sponsor, what do I want to, what can I expect and what can I get at that conference this year?
Well, before I answer that, I want to ask. I want to get into the help piece, and I'm not avoiding the question. It's I don't think people realize how difficult it is to get to the sponsor, the attendee, the other person. Meaning, often I get people, hey, how can I help? Whatnot, and they usually take it as a very like tangible physical thing, and it's like, no, I need the introduction. Like, user groups are fading away into the dust, right? I just emailed a few weeks ago. I think we emailed 150 different user groups across Meetup. I heard back from four. Yep. All of these are people that I said I'd give tickets to, whatnot. I'd like to promote to user group. Do I want them to tell them about that conference? Sure. But I also want to promote them because they have equally the same problem that I have, which is nobody's showing up, right? They used to maybe have 30, 40, 50 people, and now they have 10, 15, 20.
Yeah.
And they're confused where to get people because everybody's top of funnel is messed up because they're in little Discord, little Slack, not going to work, not going here, not showing up there, didn't go to this user group, didn't do that. This was online. This is over here. This is over there.
Right.
So that old like Windows fragmentation thing that we used to run and watch the little boxes all get realigned. We don't have that like fragmentation thing. And And so I'm in the what are you going to get piece, like to come back to your question, like when we find people, then the conversations are different because I'm saying, well, what is it that you're looking for? Like, are you really looking to connect? Okay. Are you willing to think outside the box? If you're a sponsor, I'm not Megacorp. Like, do you just legitimately want to connect with people? Okay, then let's see how we can make those goals kind of fit within our platform, because
100%.
we know how our audience works and we know the space. I'm already sunk the space. Like, if you want a table that's upside down and sideways, we can probably do that. There's no union. I'll do it myself and hand it to you. So, you know, from a sponsor perspective, you know, that transaction is a little bit easier in the aspect they know I want to sell more product. I want to get my brand out. Maybe I want to hire somebody. What can I expect? I can expect software engineers who are highly engaged, a lead generation system, an environment that's very safe, very inclusive, very, you know, open to chatting. What else should I expect? I should expect that I need to put effort in before and after if I really want to get the ROI in my experience, because the time that you're at the conference is only part of it. If you do nothing afterwards, then you get none of your benefit, because the long tail on that relationship matters. And there are a lot of people who understand, like Danger, who's in the room, they're a sponsor of ours and have been for the past couple times. And the reality is, when you show up once, like I had one company who's not coming back this year, they came once. They thought, like all these other things, they came and they saw something different. Didn't matter how many times that we said it. Didn't matter that we told them that kids were going to be around. Didn't matter that we said that there was a hog roast. Didn't go to the open spaces. Didn't get involved. Right. So the conversation afterwards was like, well, I didn't really perform the best I said. Well, fuck, of course not. Because you sat behind a table and you didn't get involved. Okay. So you came, you got it out. We both misstepped on sides, maybe. Well, how are we going to do that better next time? Oh, well, we're going to go somewhere else this time. Oh, okay. So you're just throwing your investment away. You already, the train was already running. And then you're like, you know, I don't know. Like, I didn't get my immediate gratification out of it. So I find us looking for sponsors that are more engaging.
I like your answer. I think that I believe that's important. And I think that's another piece of this. You know, when we set up these houses, they're not just like you walk in and sit down. The sponsor has to get involved. The sponsor has to be part of the planning. The sponsor has to be part of the design, right? How are you going to create this space that's unique and reflect your brand? So, you know, we're building some of that in as well, where it's like, we have to lean in and we have to create a new kind of experience. And you don't have to go to Switzerland, you know, to do this. We can do this. We could do this right here. I like that you ask for sponsors that are willing to lean in. And I think that's a bit of a differentiator as well. You don't just want to come pull up your pop-up banner and stand behind a table for a couple days. And it's like that also, like, that's just like, we have a expos, you know, section, and we have to, it's a part of our kind of like event. However, it makes me grouse a little bit, because I don't want it to just be a keynote stage, an expo, and some breakouts and some bad food and some small talk. Like, we got to just, because that model's done. It's like,
it is done, but do you have the balls to change it? I mean,
I'm getting being forced into it, right? Because it's kind of like, woke up one day and just said, wait a minute, this isn't working anymore. We have to change. We have to change. We have no choice.
Right. Okay. You know. But you and I understand this, right? You and I understand that shit doesn't work. Right. And we're going within the next 12 to 15 months, arguably should have happened 6 months ago. We're forced into saying, look, this is different. And we're going to deliver that to a constituent who is not ready to hear that it is different. And they are not going to know how to do this, because they are expecting, much like they are now, I need to have my 2019 numbers times fucking 2. And the reality is that's an unrealistic expectation. But their mindset is expo hall, this, roll up, tell me a booth number, do a thing, blah, 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 blah. And it's like different days are ahead. It has to be different. You're going to have to do different. And I mean, we're going to try, but I fear that it will, there may be some black marks along the way because it'll be different and people don't know what to do with different. I mean, let's be honest. Some of them aren't doing great now in the role because it's hard, and it wasn't hard before the pandemic. They got things. So it was easy and they looked like they were doing well. And I'm not saying that that's everybody, but there is a sense like now you have to do your job. Like it's hard. You have less resources. People are more sensitive to it. People don't, people are done with you just taking email addresses. Like, I mean, we don't sell them or anything, but they don't want to be in that bullshit. They would rather connect you to somebody. Are you going to be there to be connected to? And a lot of times it's like, nope, on to the next one. Got to go to the next city. Got to do the next thing. Right. That shit ain't gonna work.
There is there is a big challenge with daring to be different at a time when, like I said, the Panera model is very popular. It's got its place, but I think that, I think different is what people are looking for. I do believe they're looking for it. They don't know it, but they'll know it when they see it. Clark, on the podcast I listened to you with Tejas, I was actually impressed that you built your own platform. I think that there's an opportunity for you there as well. I don't know if you've thought about that, but as an event tech company, that's interesting to me that you've created some IP around the call for proposals and schedule building.
Oh, the whole 9. Ticket purchase, registration. Yes. I mean,
I would say that's really interesting. So definitely be thinking about that, because I think that's definitely a differentiator for you. Not only for your own event, but just as a business. Don't event tech space.
Don't delete it.
Do not delete that. I thought that was interesting. I think.
Well, yeah, because we would compete. I mean, let's be honest. We compete against Cvent.
Well, Sessionize, Cvent. I mean, those are great people to compete with. You should. And I think that compete with Cvent for sure. I had a terrible experience using them last year. That talk about private equity owned, just big. They do marketing really well. That's what they do well. Hi, Chrissy. How are you? Nice to see you. Clark, I think where I would like to see this go is we build a really strong network of indie conference organizers. I want to see it over the line in a month. I know it feels like I've lived that month. And here's what's happening for people out there. People register for conferences in the last month, but even in the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's really the last 2 weeks. It's like there's this peak of like 2 to 3 weeks before a conference where it peaks. It might drop off the week of the conference, but sometimes it actually accelerates up into the conference. Clark, you're right at that period because it's the worst time.
I hope that's the case for us. I mean, we sometimes last year, our historical trends broke and that it wasn't the case. And we were left like, what? Like we expected at least to be like a July like it was before, and it was not. So
last year, I'm going to give you some solace because last year was a terrible year. What happened was there were 185,000 tech layoffs last year. Most organizations canceled conference attendance. We were getting calls from speakers at NVIDIA, Salesforce, Amazon, and Microsoft to see if we could cover their expenses as a conference organizer.
What the fuck was that?
Yeah, that happened last year. That's gone. Like that's past. So I'm going to give you like, I think you're going to have a better July. That last year, 2023 was a great paradox in AI. I run AI conferences, was a great paradox because people felt like, oh, you're in AI, it's going to be awesome. But the paradox was there was a massive IT correction last year. I don't know if folks on this chat can talk about that, but there was a massive correction in IT. And there was a lot of freezing of spend or freezing of projects to try to get, like, I call it the what now moment for AI, because it was post ChatGPT. People were like, oh, what do we do now? And it just froze the market. You also had bank collapses, Silicon Valley, Signature Bank. Like last year was a rough year.
I forgot about that. We lost that week. Those banks collapsed. We lost like 4 sponsors.
Yes. Oh yeah. No, me too. Me too. Yeah.
I can remember. I was sitting here and I said, Carrie, like we just 100,000 just like slipped right out of our hands. Like this SVB thing just completely fucked us.
Yeah. So last year, this is a different year, and I hope folks can attest. It's free, and everyone is still getting used to the new normal. Yeah, Ross, I hear that, but I am bullish on the response here in July. But we're going to push. We're going to push for you.
I appreciate
we would love the same back. I think
different
kind of experience is what we have to do as independent conference organizers. We have to offer. We have to hit home that the human connection and that aspect of the event is something we can provide better than the mega conference providers. I just think I don't know if that'll resonate, but I think it's something we have to start to make part of our story. You don't see that on my events right now. Although part of my why has been, I believe human connection is vital in the era of digital transformation. That's been my why for the last 8 years. And it kind of like, I've been thinking I was going to update it, and it's like, no, it's more true now than it ever has been. Human connection is absolutely vital. And we live in the parasocial period,
Yeah, it really is. And, I know our event, this one and the ones to come, and I know they'll all be great. Like everyone has been a wonderful experience. Everyone has been something new. Somebody's learned, somebody's cried. Like they've all been great. Financially, they haven't been for the last 4 years. But we're still standing. I don't know. That's it.
Let me tell my wife I'm still on the podcast. 1 second. Hey, sweetie. Oh no. Okay. Let me wrap up here and I'll call you right back. Okay. All right. I got a family situation to go deal with.
Hey,
yep.
You got to do it. Hey, listen, yep. I appreciate the time. I'm glad we connected. We got plenty to do offline. So I wish
Clark, I think about Gladiator, right? So Gladiator, the reason those guys survived is they got together in the pen, right? They stuck together. So I am so glad to know you, because us independent conference, we have to stick together. We have to create a network that is, a formidable network. We have to learn from one another. And I just feel very lucky to know you. I hope people really, yes, thank you, Danger. Absolutely. I'm going to be pushing for your conference for this next month. I live where you live. And I know the pain, but I also know the joy of being that person that does connect others and makes a huge difference in the market. Somebody made the comment that conference is the thing holding together the Midwest tech developer engineering community. And that's very true. Right.
Sure.
And, just like there's a very lack of meetups nowadays, because it's just organizing people and organizing humans is hard. So I'm going to be pulling for you. And I'm so glad to have this time to just chat, share some of my story, and meet some of the folks here on the chat. Thank you for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Pete. And
All right.
thanks everybody who's been online. We'll see
To
you.
be continued.